Good afternoon for those joining us from the East Coast, and good morning to those joining us from other parts of the country. Welcome to today's webinar, hosted by the Federal Communications Commission's Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau to provide an update on the Affordable Connectivity Program. My name is Miriam Montgomery, and I serve as the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division Chief. Thank you. During today's webinar, I will provide an update on the 60-day Affordable Connectivity Program public notice that was released by the Commission earlier this month on March 4th. Provide suggested guidance on what ACP households should do as the Affordable Connectivity Program comes to an end unless Congress provides additional funding extending the program. I will also share resources that are available to our outreach partners and consumers related to the Affordable Connectivity Program winding down. And as we have depended on our outreach partners who have continued to serve as trusted messengers in raising awareness of the Affordable Connectivity Program when the ACP was accepting applications and enrollments, we also have prepared call to action to the same outreach partners and new outreach partners that have recently joined to help us inform ACP households about the program coming to an end. To provide a background on the Affordable Connectivity Program, in 2021, through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Congress tasked the Federal Communications Commission to develop and maintain the Affordable Connectivity Program, a federal program that offers eligible households a discount on their internet bill and a one-time discount off the purchase of a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet. And this program provided a funding of $14.2 billion. Due to lack of additional funding from Congress, the last fully funded month for the Affordable Connectivity Program benefit is April of this year, next month. Absent additional funding from Congress, the Affordable Connectivity Program can only provide partial reimbursements to households that are currently enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program for May of 2024. Over 23 million households that will be impacted by the Affordable Connectivity Program winding down. Before we get into the latest updates as it relates to the ACP wind down, I'd like to first share successes of the Affordable Connectivity Program and anticipated impact on households. As I mentioned on the previous slide, as part of the 2021 Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Congress provided a historic $14.2 billion for the Affordable Connectivity Program to help close the digital divide and address internet affordability as one of the main barriers for those that lacked internet connectivity. Over 23 million households that are enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program will be impacted if Congress doesn't provide additional funding as the current funding level is running out. These households include those that are in rural areas, and that ACP households enrolled today use ACP to get online and stay online to fully participate in American society. This includes for healthcare purposes, for work, for education, and much more. There are also over 1,700 providers, internet companies, that participate in the ACP. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please. Or the previous slide. Thank you. That participate in the ACP. There have been over 12.4 million devices that have been claimed as part of this program, and 44% of those that are enrolled use the Affordable Connectivity Program monthly benefit for fixed internet connections in their home. We also launched the Commission's first ever grant program as part of the Affordable Connectivity Program to help raise awareness of and provide enrollment assistance to eligible households. Through the outreach grants, we issued over 228 awards to trusted state, local, tribal, governmental, and community partners, providing access to over $72 million in funding. The commission alone also supported over 1,400 outreach and enrollment events and provided outreach materials in 10 languages. The FCC also established rules to protect consumers participating in the ACP. These protections that could potentially go away if the Affordable Connectivity Program is not extended. The FCC also stood up a dedicated FCC process for addressing complaints, some of which have actually resulted in enforcement actions handled by the Commission's Enforcement Bureau. Just last month alone, on February 29th, the Federal Communications Commission released new survey results highlighting the success of the ACP and the significant impact the end of this program will have on working families. The survey itself was conducted in December of 2023, reveals that 68% or over 2/3 of households currently enrolled say that they had inconsistent connectivity or zero connectivity prior to the ACP. 2/3 depend on the ACP to get online and stay connected. 80% of this group said affordability was the reason for having inconsistent or zero connectivity. Nearly half of the survey respondents, or 53% of rural respondents, also stated that having zero connectivity or relying solely on mobile service before they were able to sign up for the ACP. Okay, and 77% of survey respondents say losing their ACP benefit would either force them to change their plan or drop internet connectivity entirely, which could result in service disruptions. Next slide, please. On January 11th of this year, in 2024, the FCC formally announced or issued the Windown Order detailing the wind-down process. As part of this order, it prepared consumers for the end of the ACP, which included directing providers to send notices to ACP households regarding the program coming to an end, and the continuation of service, including information about timing, content, and delivery of those notices. It also provided further announcements, or it would also included information on further announcements from the FCC and the Universal Service Administrative Company, USAC, that serves as the administrator of the ACP, and the timing for when the FCC will announce the last fully funded month of the program, which was the 60-day notice that we're here to talk about. And it also established an enrollment freeze and discussed the impact of on ACP outreach, including our grant-funded outreach partners. And lastly, it amended the claims process for service providers that are participating in the Affordable Connectivity Program by establishing an expedited claim process. The impact on ACP households as it relates to the Affordable Connectivity Program winding down is that the ACP stopped accepting new applications and enrollments on February 7th. And as a result, both paper and electronic ACP applications have been removed and are no longer accessible. Barring additional funding from Congress, the Commission announced that April 2024 is the last month where enrolled ACP households will receive the full benefit. So the benefit could be $30 or $75 for those that live on qualifying tribal lands. The Commission also announced that May 2024 will provide partial discount to some enrolled households. All ACP households that are currently enrolled at the time and that were enrolled at the time of enrollment freeze will remain enrolled through the final month of the ACP, and if they are not required to de-enroll as part of FCC rules. And this is if they go a period of time without using their FCC-supported device. Households that are de-enrolled from the program, such as failure to use their ACP supported service, will not be able to reapply or re-enroll in the ACP as we are currently in the enrollment freeze period. After May 2024, the Affordable Connectivity Program will no longer support any benefits to enrolled households. Information on the ACP enrollment freeze public notice that was issued by the Commission is provided at the bottom of this slide. In terms of the 60-day notice that was issued on March 4th, 2024, the Commission announced that unless there's additional funding from Congress, the $14.2 billion will be fully exhausted by April 2024, where it will be the last fully funded month for the Affordable Connectivity Program. Additionally, the ACP will only be able to provide partial reimbursements for May to internet companies that choose to provide discount to households. The public notice also outlined three main elements. One, it provides guidance on the May 2024 partial reimbursement month. So ACP, as I mentioned previously, ACP funds the $14.2 billion that was initially authorized by Congress or appropriated by Congress isn't sufficient to pay all provider claims in full through May 2024 service month. So April 2024 is the last fully funded month for the program, and May 2024 will be partial reimbursements to providers that choose to offer that discount to those households. Providers that choose to provide a benefit in May must plan to pass through only a reduced benefit to households that have opted in, and I'll get into what that means in a little bit, to continue to receive and pay for internet service after the full ACP month is no longer applied in April. Providers may only claim the discount that was passed through to the household, and the Commission also will issue further guidance on what May 2024 reimbursement guidelines will be later this month. The other element that the 60-day notice also included is reminding ACP providers of the notices they must send to households. First initially included as part of the January 11th Windown Order that was released by the Commission, and again reinforced as part of the 60-day public notice that was issued earlier this month. Providers are required to send 3 notices to households, and they can send more than 3, but 3 is the requirement. The initial notice has already gone out to households, and the deadline to send the initial notice that the ACP is coming to an end was January 25th of 2024. And this initial notice that providers sent to households informed them that the Affordable Connectivity Program is ending and the impact on their service and bills. The deadline for the second notice is due on March 19th, 2024. And this is following the 60-day public notice. And again, this second notice is supposed to inform ACP households that the program is ending, the Affordable Connectivity Program is ending, and provide more guidance on what the impact is or will be on their service and bill. The last notice will coincide with the last bill or billing cycle in which the full ACP discount is applied. These are not the only notices that ACP households will get or have been getting. The USAC, the administrator of the Affordable Connectivity Program, has also been sending notices to households. The FCC has also been conducting webinars similar to what we're doing today, and has also been briefing outreach partners and publishing a lot of resources, fact sheets, talking points, updating our web pages to make sure that households are informed about the Affordable Connectivity Program coming to an end and what they can and should be doing to plan for this transition. The 60-day notice also has specific requirements. It reminds ACP households of their right to change their service or opt out, meaning they no longer want to continue to receiving their internet service after the ACP ends. It also providers are also required to notify ACP households about any partial ACP discount that will be applied for May of 2024. As I mentioned previously, not all providers will provide the partial discount. So the providers that will provide partial discount in May are required to inform the households of what that discount will be. Providers are also required to state in writing that the household will be subject to the internet company's fully undiscounted rates and general terms and conditions after the last bill that any partial benefit is applied. So the notices that are going out should clearly state after the $30 discount is no longer available to that household, or the $75 discount if that household is on qualifying tribal lands, it will need to clearly state what their undiscounted rate will be that they have to pay out of pocket. And also, providers are required to send notices in a manner that is accessible to persons with disabilities. There are also other aspects that the Commission strongly recommends that providers do, that we can't require, but we strongly recommend. First, it's to include in required notices information about their low-cost offerings. If providers have low-cost plans, or if providers have low-income programs, to provide information, to include information about that in the notices that they're sending to households, and include a phone number or a link to a website where a household can obtain such information. Providers are also required to correspond more frequent, or encouraged to correspond more frequently with their ACP households beyond the 3 notices that the Commission requires. And lastly, we strongly encourage providers to send notices in format and language that is consistent with the consumer expressed preference, meaning if a consumer has expressed that they prefer to get messages from providers over text message or over mail or over email, to also send information and notices about the Affordable Connectivity Program winding down in a similar way that they communicate with those households. Lastly, the 60-day notice also calls to attention to consumer protections that providers are required to continue, that remain in place even during the Affordable Connectivity Program winding down. And in some cases, the consumer protections that will remain in place even after the Affordable Connectivity Program ends. So during the ACP wind down, so when we officially entered the wind down period on January 11th and through the end of the program, providers are still required are still held to the consumer protection requirements that are published in the ACP rules. The only exception to this is for rules that are related to new enrollments, as the Affordable Connectivity Program is no longer accepting new applications. And as I mentioned, some of these protections that are available to consumers will go away if the Affordable Connectivity Program ends. Examples of the consumer protections that providers are still held to include transferring ACP discounts. Households can continue to transfer their ACP discount to other participating internet companies who continue to accept those transfers. So if a household today is enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program and before the program ends, wants to continue, want to transfer their benefit or want to transfer their $30 discount or $70 discount, $75 discount to a different provider that also participates in the Affordable Connectivity Program, if that provider is accepting transfers, then the current provider that the household is enrolled with cannot prevent the consumer from being able to transfer their service or transfer their benefit. The next protection is terminating service. Providers cannot terminate ACP households' internet service for failure to pay for service until 90 days has passed since the bill payment due date. And this is again to make sure that households have enough time to decide what changes, if they want to downgrade their plan, if they want to switch their plan, but they can't terminate their service, their internet service, for failure to pay for 90 days. Now, providers can switch the household to a lower cost plan as long as they provide an advance notice to the household that has entered a delinquent status after the bill due date. And this is in place because we don't want households to start incurring large debt. So if a provider sends a notice to the household saying that there's a lower cost plan and that they're transferring their current plan to a lower cost plan, that is acceptable by our rules. And again, just to reemphasize, this rule will be in place for as long as the household continues to receive the ACP discount. And lastly, early termination fees. And this is actually one that will continue to stay in place even after the Affordable Connectivity Program ends. If a household enters into a service plan with an extended service contract and they applied their ACP discount to that service plan, the provider cannot charge them, that household, early termination fee. Now, the only exception to this is if a household was paying for a device in installments, the household may be required to pay off the device before canceling their service. Otherwise, if a household says, I can't afford to have internet connection without the ACP discount, therefore, I'm going to terminate my service plan, the provider that they are currently enrolled with cannot charge them a fee for terminating their service. What should households do that are currently enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program? First and foremost, carefully review written notices that households are getting from internet companies, from USAC, about the ACP Wind-Down. The information that the Federal Communications Commission is sending is about the program, but the notices that households are getting from their provider, it will be specific to their service plan. So it is really, really important to make sure that households are reviewing the notices that they're getting from their provider and from USAC. And just as a reminder, providers are required to send at least 3 written notices to households. The first one was due by January 25th. The next one will be coming out on March 19th. So if you are joining today, this webinar, and you haven't heard from your provider, contact your provider because they are required to have sent the first notice. There have also been notices that USAC has been sending to ACP households as well. Again, carefully review the USAC written notices as well about the program winding down. The USAC notices are meant to complement the required provider notices that have been going out. And also consult with your internet company to learn more about how the Affordable Connectivity Program ending will impact your internet service and your bill. If If you have questions, it's very important to contact them and walk through the options that you have. We are also always updating our FCC and USAC consumer-facing web pages, and the website address is here, www.fcc.gov/ACP and affordableconnectivity.gov. Anytime there's any new update or new resources that are available, this is where we publish those materials. Lastly, some households that are enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program may also qualify for the Lifeline program that the Federal Communications Commission administers as well. The Lifeline program offers up to $9.25 a month off of phone, internet, or bundled phone and internet services. And for those that live on qualifying tribal lands, that discount, the savings is $34.25. Not all ACP recipients will qualify for Lifeline, and not all ACP providers participate in the Lifeline program. But if you would like to see if you are eligible for the Lifeline program, or if you are eligible, if a provider that you're currently enrolled with for the Affordable Connectivity Program also participates in the Lifeline program, we recommend that you visit the lifelinesupport.org webpage. What happens after the Affordable Connectivity Program ends? ACP households will continue to receive their internet service with their provider, and we're referring to this as opting in, if they previously agreed to continue internet service with their provider, if they paid for internet service from their with that provider before they started receiving the ACP discount, or if they currently contribute to the cost of their internet service, even with the ACP discount being applied. So we want to make sure that the 23+ million households that are enrolled in the program today don't face disruption with their internet service and don't lose access to their internet service. So if households are currently, if they previously agreed to continue their internet service after the ACP goes away, if they paid for internet before ACP discount was applied, or if they could, currently contribute to the cost of their internet, that means they have opted in to continue receiving internet and therefore will not be disconnected. However, if households, have opted out, and that means they will not continue to receive internet service, those households may fall in one of these categories. They did not previously agree to continue internet service after the ACP ends, or they have not paid their internet company for service. And if you are an ACP household, you currently receive the ACP benefit and you're not quite sure if you opted in, if you previously agreed to continuing your internet service after the ACP ends, or if you paid for internet before you started receiving your ACP discount, and if you receive no bill today because the ACP discount fully covers your internet bill, we strongly recommend that you just contact your provider and explore what your options are. And if you fall in a scenario where, you can't afford the cost of the internet after the benefit goes away, or you would like to cancel your plan with the current provider that you have and switch to a different provider, then you can opt out and you will need to just let your provider know. Households are not required to stay with the same provider and continue to receive the same service that they have. We recommend, talk to your provider first to see what low-cost plans the provider has If the provider has a low-income program, maybe what are the qualifications for that? And if you participating in the Affordable Connectivity Program today qualifies you for their low-cost plan, ask those questions. And we actually have resources and fact sheet that will be coming out this week. And that will have some guiding questions so that when you contact your provider and you're trying to figure out if you opted in or should opt in, or if you should opt out, the types of questions that you can ask. Call to action for our partners. I mentioned, our outreach partners have been absolutely instrumental in getting us to the 23 plus million households that are currently enrolled in the program. You all have been working alongside our outreach team here at the Federal Communications Commission, promoting the program for households that needed assistance signing up for the Affordable Connectivity Program. You have been there helping them with the application process. And just for, related to that, now that this program is winding down, we also want you to help us in getting this information out to households so that everyone that is currently enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program knows that this program is ending and they have access to support if they have questions. And we're always available. Our staff here is available. But we want to make sure that the trusted messengers, community partners that they have come to depend on are also available to them. So with that, if you are an outreach partner that has joined this webinar today, our call to action is help us amplify the resources that are available to households. We've published a lot of resources on our web pages, and we have updates that are coming out today or that came out yesterday, and more will be coming out this week. Help us amplify these resources that are available. We also want you to provide feedback on how we can improve our messaging around ACP winding down. If there's still confusion around certain aspects of, how the program winding down affects ACP households, tell us so that we can improve the messaging that we're communicating out. We also, ask our navigators and community partners to continue to share feedback on all things ACP. We are very reactive and very, we pay close attention to the feedback that you're sharing with us. And if it's making changes to materials that we're including, or if it's changing the resources that we have or updating policies, we really do pay close attention to the feedback that we get. And if you see gaps in the ACP consumer resources or concerns that are not being addressed by the FCC, please let us know. We want to make sure that ACP households have everything that they need and the support that they need to as they proceed with this transition period. And most importantly, let's have an active feedback loop to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our community partners. I mentioned outreach partner and consumer resources. This is just, some sampling of the resources that we've made available. First and foremost, the FCC ACP website is our one-stop shop for all things ACP. This is where you'll find the latest information on what's happening with the wind down. We have ACP wind down fact sheets, and these are available in multiple languages. And we just recently updated the fact sheet. We also have consumer protection specific and opt-in, opt-out specific fact sheets that will be coming out this week. We also have frequently asked questions document on ACP wind down that we recently updated. And again, this is where a lot of the questions that we get through different engagements that we have with households and with outreach partners, we're always revisiting our frequently asked questions document to make sure that, those questions that are being asked, especially if there's an underlying theme to those questions, that we're answering them and making those answers widely available to everyone. I mentioned some, statistics around survey results that the FCC and in close coordination with USAC conducted in December. And that, the survey highlights the success and impact of the program ending will have on working families. That link is also, the survey results is also located on the ACP website. There's also the ASL hotline, and that is for consumers who are deaf or hard of hearing. And the number that they may contact for that is 844-432-2275. We've also received a lot of questions around, who are the participating providers today by state? And we want to make sure that this information is, again, it's already on our website, but we want to highlight it again. And the list of participating providers for the Affordable Connectivity Program is located on the ACP website. And that is searchable by state and territory, by broadband service type, if it's fixed or wireless. There's also information for consumer support phone number and consumer website address. And this is important as, if households are not quite sure if they should, continue to receive internet service with a provider that they are enrolled with today, or if they should explore other options that other providers may have. This is a great tool to start calling other providers in the state to see if they have low-cost plans that they may sign up for. There's also the FCC virtual speakers, and the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division is and will continue to be available to educate our outreach partners, to educate consumers on anything ACP Wind-Down related. And it's not limited to just the Affordable Connectivity Program, but since this presentation is specific to the Affordable Connectivity Program, if you would like us to provide a briefing to your stakeholder group on the Affordable Connectivity Program winding down or ending, we are available. And the email address to request a speaker is acpspeakers@fcc.gov. And we ask that you include a date and time and number of audience members so that we can make the necessary plans. There's also the USAC ACP Support Center. And we recommend that, if there are general ACP related questions, that would be a great resource. But if there are questions regarding to a bill, your internet bill, or your specific benefit and service plan that you have with a provider, that contact your internet provider, as they will be able to help you specific to your service plan. And lastly, the FCC Consumer Complaint Center. If consumers feel that providers that they're enrolled with today are acting in an unjust or unreasonable manner during this period, during the wind down period, please let us know by filing a complaint. And this includes on ACP billing and service issues, and some of those complaints may result in an enforcement action. So let us know if you feel like the provider that you have, your internet company, is acting in an unjust or unreasonable way, or if they're violating the consumer protection rules that they are required to abide by. Let us know, and we will look into that. That concludes our presentation for today. So thank you for joining us. And this presentation will be archived, and we will post it on our ACP website at fcc.gov/ACP. And again, if you have any questions, or you have, anything that you want to reach out to us, we are available. We'll continue to be available. And we hope that, this is a very important program gets reauthorized, gets additional funding, because it has been a great, tremendous benefit to our households that depend on this. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Without further ado, thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.